credit. Terms and conditions apply.
Something good to know from First Bank of Sea Isle City. We have all of today's innovative banking products just like the big banks, but we offer something they can't. A personal community focus. Let's get you started with Bill Pay. You save time when you pay your bills online. It's fast, easy, and convenient. First Bank of Sea Isle City. A community bank that delivers more for you every day. Personal service, today's technology, from the people who truly care. Learn more at firstbankseaisle.com.
Member FDIC, Equal Housing Lender.
South Jersey's official play-by-play home of the Eagles, Sixers, and Flyers.
At 0 point would I ever consider not being a fan of the team.
97.3 ESPN, WENJ, WENJ HD, Millville, Atlantic City. A Town Square media station serving all of South Jersey. This is Game Night with Josh Hinnick.
Let's go!
On 97.3 ESPN and the 97.3 ESPN free mobile app.
And he scored!
Now live from inside the Ocean Casino Resort studio, here's Josh Hinnick.
Josh Hinnick live in the Ocean Casino Resort studios. Phillies are dominant. We'll get into that this hour. Plus, reaction to Daryl Morey, the Sixers president of basketball operations. Well, he's on a bit of a media tour. It's his turn to speak to different media outlets. And, well, unlike Howie Roseman, we do have to ask the question, how much do you believe what this guy is saying? Of course, you guys can chime in on the conversation on the Sixers, the Phillies, and if we have time, we'll hit on the Eagles as well this hour on 97.3 ESPN FM. 609-403-0973. That's the text board. We also take your DMs into the 97.3 ESPN mobile app powered by First Bank of Sea Isle. You know, last night, the Phillies got a very impressive win. And they are been on a stretch right now where they are starting to look like the Phillies we thought they would be, right? You know, ever since that series in Chicago when they won 2 out of 3 against the Cubs and 2 out of 3 against the Nats and then 2 out of 3 against Arizona and now 2 straight against Tampa, they have now won 4 straight series. And overall, you got to admit that, you know, when you're a team that before this series won 6 out of your last 9, and now you have won 8 of your last 11, you're hitting a groove. You're finding your pace. And they're not doing it against trashy teams either. The Cubs are a very good baseball team offensively. The Diamondbacks, not the best year for them, but they are still a very competitive team, and they're going to be in a wild card race the entire year. You know, maybe if you want to say Tampa's not as good as you thought they were, you could have that conversation. But again, you're not playing the worst of the worst in baseball consistently. Yeah, the Nationals squeezed in there, but that's really it. So, do we believe in the Phillies again? And it kind of goes back to what me and Nick Earnshaw talked about this past Saturday when we were filling in for Billy Schweim in the locker room here on 97.3 ESPN. It's the idea that it's not that I didn't believe the Phillies were a playoff team, okay? And I think in many ways the current run of games validates your belief in them, right? It kind of gives you the faith to say, okay, you're starting to show me who I thought you were all along. The problem with the Phillies is the reality that they are still a flawed team. They're just taking advantage of the matchups that benefit them the most. And I think that's the real key to all this. The real key to all this at the end of the day is the Phillies are a team that they're going to win probably around 95 games this year. And they're probably going to win a lot of those games the way you have seen in the last several days. They're going to win a bunch of games when they score a lot of runs. Mike Gill brought up the stat earlier today that the Phillies are 15-5 when they score at least 5 runs in a game this year. Well, you look back at their schedule. Since that Cubs series, the only game that they lost where they scored 5 runs or more was the 10-inning game on Sunday against the Diamondbacks. Before that, the last time they lost a game where they scored 5 runs or more was also an extra inning game, that being April 20th against the Marlins. So this team has shown you, not just in the last week and change, but since mid-April, that this is a team, when they score runs, they're going to win games. And that's going to be the key down the stretch, because this team was built to hit. And now that we're approaching hitting season, you're going to see a lot more wins than losses long term. Because we already knew this was a good pitching staff, starting staff at least. With Luzardo going tonight, you could make the argument that now that everyone is healthy, between Sanchez and Suarez, added to Luzardo, Nola, and Wheeler, there really is no guy in this pitching rotation where you're like, that's the loss on the schedule. That guy doesn't exist anymore. So for Philadelphia, it's all about the hitting. It's all about the offense. And what's crazy about this, that kind of drives the point home, at least for me, is when you look around the National League and you see the Phillies have scored 174 runs this year. Did you know that there are 7 teams in the National League, 7, who have all scored more runs this year than the Phillies? For a team that has $500 million, I'll let you chew on that number for a minute, $500 million, invested in Trey Turner, Bryce Harper, Nick Castellanos, JT Realmuto, and Kyle Schwarber, okay? There's 5 guys on this team who are the big money makers. They are accounting for a huge chunk of your salaries. And there's 7 teams that have scored more runs than you this year. That doesn't seem like the best expenditure of your money. But here are the teams. The New York Mets, the Chicago Cubs, the Cincinnati Reds, the Milwaukee Brewers, the Los Angeles Dodgers, the Arizona Diamondbacks, and the San Francisco Giants. Those are your 7 teams. And unless you're a team like the Padres, who has some of the best pitching in all of baseball, you better score some runs. You have scored the same number of runs this year as the St. Louis Cardinals. The difference is you have a better pitching staff than the Cardinals. You've scored more runs than the Padres, but they have a better pitching staff than you. So, for Philadelphia, the biggest key to getting through this regular season is the offense has got to pick it up. Because I promise you right now, you're not going to get an elite performance every night from the pitching staff. You are going to get a solid, but maybe not great start, a game here, a game there. It's going to happen. And it will happen at some point this year. So for Philadelphia, they got to keep the offense rolling. Now, I'm not a fan of the lineup tonight. I am not a fan of them ditching Rojas to put Marsh back in the lineup. I kind of feel like the Phillies are trying a little too hard to make Brandon Marsh a thing at this point. It's like the movie Mean Girls when they yell at the one girl saying, "Stop trying to make fetch a thing." That's what the Phillies are doing with Brandon Marsh right now. They're trying to make Brandon Marsh a somebody. And it's like, stop trying to tell me that Brandon Marsh is the answer to anything at this point. Brandon Marsh has regressed. And whether whether it's an injury-related issue, whether that's because he's not seeing the ball well enough out of the pitcher's hand, whatever the reason is, since you acquired Brandon Marsh, he has gotten worse every single year. His first 41 games in Philadelphia, he was a .288 hitter. The next season, through 133 games, .277. So he went down 11 points from one year to the next. Then, last season, he had a .249 batting average. So now you go down almost 30 points on your batting average. Now, you have gone down 106 points in your batting average from last season to this season. Brandon Marsh is not getting better. For a guy who, when you acquired him, was a 24-year-old prospect with some unfulfilled potential, and you kind of felt that, maybe with time and reps, he could be somebody. He has not become a better hitter. By the way, the on-base percentage, 2023, 374, then down to 328 last year, 259 this year. Brandon Marsh has gotten worse every single year, but yet the Philadelphia Phillies want us to believe that this guy should be starting in center field over Johan Rojas. Look, Johan Rojas is not a all-star caliber player. But what he is a lot better than Brandon Marsh. While Marsh has a batting average of 143, Rojas has a batting average of 303. Marsh's on-base percentage almost 100 points better than Brandon Marsh. And by the way, Rojas has a better everything right now than Brandon Marsh. Rojas has shown you a level of improvement and development, and this is where the Phillies will get in trouble. The Phillies are going to become one of those teams where they're going to become so loyal and committed to a certain group of guys and a certain way of doing things, they're going to lose their way. And I hope that's not the case. I hope at some point this organization can sit Brandon Marsh down and say, Marsh, you're not playing good. We can't rationalize putting you in the lineup anymore. This is Rojas's job until further notice. At least not for tonight. That's not happening. But I hope and pray that that is the direction Philadelphia goes in. Because ultimately, Rojas is giving you production at the plate that Brandon Marsh is not even close to. Not even close. Not even the neighborhood. It's the only downside of the Phillies right now. The only downside is for a team that seems to be trending upward and on numerous levels in multiple categories, that center field situation appears to still be a massive albatross for this team. Text board is open. 609-403-0973. Your DMs into 973 ESPN mobile app powered by First Bank of Seattle. Coming up on the other side, Daryl Morey is on the media press tour. And I'm going to gauge for you what he said, because I don't think Daryl Morey is a liar. But I do think there is a level of disconnect when it comes to the Sixers president of basketball operations. There is a major disconnect between him and the fan base, and we'll get into why that may be the biggest reason why he is on the hot seat going in to this offseason and next season. Josh Hennig hanging out with you on a Thursday edition of Game Night on 97.3 ESPN.
Something good to know from First Bank of Sea Isle City. We have all of today's innovative banking products just like the big banks, but we offer something they can't. A personal community focus. Let's get you started with Bill Pay. You save time when you pay your bills online. It's fast, easy, and convenient. First Bank of Sea Isle City. A community bank that delivers more for you every day. Personal service, today's technology, from the people who truly care. Learn more at firstbankseaisle.com.
Member FDIC, Equal Housing Lender.
This is the story of the one. As a lineman, he does whatever it takes to keep the power on in his community. And he wants a partner like Grainger who does the same. Grainger offers the professional-grade products he needs, from voltage detectors to harnesses to hard hats, plus fast, dependable delivery, so he can rise to every challenge. Call 1-800-GRAINGER, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Progressive knows if you have to choose between everyday life and your RV, RV wins.
What, are you going to take the RV to the mountains or go pick up your dry cleaning?
RV wins!
Are we cleaning the gutters or taking the RV camping?
RV wins!
Are we getting a new passport or cruising up the coast?
RV wins!
Don't forget, you got that trip to Sweden coming up.
Oh, yeah, passport, then RV.
With Progressive, you can bundle your RV with your home or auto and save with a discount and spend more time enjoying those savings in your RV. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company affiliates and other insurers. Not available in all states and situations.
Lowe's knows a thriving yard starts with quality care. Right now, get Miracle-Gro 3/4 cubic foot all-purpose garden soil for just $2. Was $4.58. Plus, get a free Select Ego 56-volt trimmer or blower with the purchase of a Select Ego 56-volt mower. The best yard starts with the best deals. Lowe's, we help, you save. Valid through 5/14, excludes Alaska and Hawaii. Selection varies by location while supplies last.
When you're hiring, have you ever felt like you're missing out on meeting great candidates? Well, they're not hard to find when you go to ZipRecruiter. ZipRecruiter helps 10 million people with their job search every day. People who are actively looking for jobs like yours. So it's easy to find the right person fast. 4 out of 5 employers who post on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate within the first day. Try ZipRecruiter for free at ZipRecruiter.com/free. That's ZipRecruiter.com/free.
Get in the zone, AutoZone.
Welcome to AutoZone. What are you working on today? Worried about your battery and the heat? We get it. You don't want to get stranded somewhere with a car that feels like an oven. We've got you covered at AutoZone, America's #1 battery destination. Our free battery testing and charging service can help. And if you need a battery, we'll help you find a new one, no problem. Power through with free battery testing and charging at AutoZone.
Get in the zone, AutoZone.
Restrictions apply.
This is the Town Square, New Jersey Info and Weather Network.
Progressive Insurance presents the Sports Flash on 97.3 ESPN. The Phillies continuing their 6-game road trip tonight as they wrap up their series in Tampa against the Rays at Steinbrenner Field. Tampa Bay, one of 2 teams in the majors playing in a minor league stadium. Wednesday, the Phillies won 7-0. Trey Turner had a home run, Bryce Harper a 2-run double. Tonight it'll be Jesus Luzardo getting the start for Philadelphia. Ryan Pepio will counter for Tampa Bay. Phillies have won 8 of their last 10. The NBA playoffs continuing tonight. Only one game on the schedule, Minnesota hosting Golden State. The Warriors took game 1 of this series, but they did lose Steph Curry to a strained hamstring. He'll be out about a week. PGA Tour playing in Philadelphia this week. Today was round 1 of the Truist Championship at Philadelphia Cricket Club. It's the first time the course has hosted a PGA Tour event, and the course has been around since 1922. Progressive Insurance, bundle auto and home, renters or condo, and save with Progressive. I'm Tony Desiri, and that's your Sports Flash on 97.3 ESPN.
You matter, and so does your well-being. If you're facing tough moments, struggling with anxiety, depression, thoughts of suicide, or substance use, help is here anytime you need it. Call, text, or chat 988 for free confidential support. New Jersey's 988 Suicide and Crisis Lifeline is here 24/7 for you or someone you love, with trained counselors who listen and care without judgment. You matter. Remember New Jersey's 988. A message from the New Jersey Department of Human Services.
From the Town Square, New Jersey Info and Weather Network, I'm Chief Meteorologist Dan Zarrow. Rain chances are on the rise tonight. Tomorrow looks like a wet day overall. Grab the umbrella. Clouds thicken up tonight. Rain becomes steadier by daybreak. Low temperature 59. For tomorrow, expect periods of rain. Looks to be heaviest in the morning, maybe breaking apart in the afternoon. Cloudy and cool, high 64. Drying out with clearing skies Saturday, high 69. Sunny and 74 for Mother's Day Sunday. Get weather 24/7 wherever you are. Download our free mobile app today.
You have the choice, whether it's going out to dinner or ordering takeout at a local restaurant. Those choices help to put money back into your community. And Town Square Media South Jersey puts a spotlight on local restaurants.
Tuckahoe Inn Restaurant, come join the good times. Tennessee Avenue Beer Hall, great beer, killer eats, unmatched vibes. Island Grill Restaurant, serving fresh, delicious seafood favorites in Ocean City for 30 years.
Thank you for supporting these great local restaurants.
This is Game Night with Josh Hennig on 97.3 ESPN and the 97.3 ESPN free mobile app.
We'll get to the Daryl Morey stuff, we'll call it, in just a few minutes. I will say really quick, I don't hate Daryl Morey. Me and Mike Gill talked about this a little bit earlier on the Sports Bash here on 97.3 ESPN. I don't hate the guy. I just have an indifference about him. Like, to me, he's such an insignificant piece of my problems with the Sixers. Like, Daryl Morey, in many ways for me, is a symptom of a larger problem with the Sixers organization. And I understand that in a city like Philadelphia, with a Philadelphia fan base, the guy looks and sounds like he does not belong as the executive of a basketball team. But there were a lot of people who said that Howie Roseman didn't sound or look like a basketball GM. One of the arguments that Billy Schweim and I used to have when I used to produce his show every weekend was, Howie would say, he would say that Howie's not a football guy. And I would say, it doesn't matter if he's a football guy. Does he get the job done or not? And, Billy has, admitted that he was wrong about that. And, we kind of, smooth that over time. But the point is that I think the problem with Daryl Morey, I think it's a much deeper issue than just him looking and sounding, do we use the term Mike Gill used, looking and sounding like a gamer instead of an actual coach or manager or executive. He doesn't look or do anything in a sense that would make you think he is a legitimate professional in his industry. So I'll get to the Morey stuff in just a bit, but first let's get to the text board at 609-403-0973. Your DMs into 97.3 ESPN mobile app powered by First Bank of Seattle. Anonymous texter chiming in and says, center field is not Rojas's job either. It's going to be Justin Crawford's. Well, listen, listen, anonymous texter, and I wish you would have left your name because we could have had this conversation a little bit more cleanly, but I digress. Crawford is not here. Until he gets here, who do I have on the roster who should start in center field? Okay? You have you basically have three options. Okay? As of right now. Johan Rojas, Brandon Marsh, and Mundo Sosa. Right here, right now, May 8th. We can talk about Justin Crawford taking the job some other day whenever he gets here. I can't sit here and treat a position on May 8th with the foresight that, 2-3 months from now, I can't live my life like that. It's a 162-game schedule. So I have three guys who are legitimate candidates for center field. Rojas, Marsh, and Sosa. Now, I know if needed, Max Kepler can play there, but no one in their right mind is expecting Kepler to become the full-time center fielder, because then who are you going to put in right field full-time? Marsh? Weston Wilson? Come on. I mean, we saw Sosa play, one game in left field? I mean, he actually started one game in left field. So of the options we have, not the options that are coming in a month or two or three, if ever, because I'm still not convinced that this team is going to hand the keys to the center field over to Justin Crawford this year. I still think that there's a scenario where even if Crawford comes up, that he would do some platooning with Rojas because he is a left-handed hitter. And I think him being a left-handed hitter is a demerit against him right now, because the major league level, he's not going to be able to do all the stuff he's done in the minor league level. He's going to have a learning curve. No matter, he could be the greatest center field prospect since, I don't know, who do you want, since his dad, Carl Crawford, or maybe the best center field prospect since Kenny Lofton, Marquise Grissom, whoever you want to use. The reality is that there's a learning curve for everybody. So I can't sit here and say that center field is Crawford's job when he hasn't even gotten here yet to take the job. Look, this should be Johan Rojas' job until further notice. Until someone comes along who is better than him, this should be Rojas' job. And the fact that Marsh is starting in center field tonight just feels like such a slap in the face. Because it's an insult to our intelligence. You, the Philadelphia sports fan, is not an idiot. You, the Philadelphia sports fan, is passionate, and you're among the more educated fans in all of sports. There are basically a certain groups of fans who are among the smartest and most educated. And Philadelphia sports fans, if they're not number one, they're in the top 3 or 4, okay? They're on the Mount Rushmore, the whatever top list you want to call it. So, for you, the fan, you know, as well as I know, that the only reason why Brandon Marsh is starting this game tonight is because of this team's irrational loyalty to the guy who is a great locker room bro. Today was the conclave where they voted for the next pope of the Roman Catholic Church. That would be like them saying, hey, we know that this guy is more qualified for the job, but we're going to give it to somebody else because we like them. You would think they're nuts. Why is sports the only place that we're allowed to give somebody a job responsibility when they're not the best person for that job? I'll never understand it. It's the one thing about sports that has always perplexed me. Okay? Why is the world okay with saying we should hire the best person for almost every job and every point in life except for sports? Like, if Brandon Marsh, let's make an equivalent here, okay? Let's say you got a group of mechanics, all right? If Brandon Marsh was the third best mechanic in a shop, or you go to get your hair cut, and Brandon Marsh was the worst barber in the barber shop, okay? Or if Brandon Marsh was, of all of the line cooks, he was the worst of the line cooks, why would you want him fixing your car, cutting your hair, or making your food? This is why this stuff drives me nuts. This is why it absolutely drives me nuts. Because at some point along the way, people are either overthinking, they're trying to be the smartest person in the room, or whatever it is. And it's absolutely maddening. And maybe this is how we lead into the Daryl Morey audio. Okay, so Daryl Morey, for those who didn't hear or didn't see, he's been on a media tour. He's been on multiple shows, multiple platforms. But the longest interview he did was he was a guest on the Rights to Ricky Sanchez podcast. Now, for the uninitiated, okay, I understand there are some people out there who maybe are not overly familiar, but the Rice to Ricky Sanchez podcast is one of the most famous Sixers-centric podcasts on the planet. They have the largest following. They date all the way back to the beginning of the process era 10 years ago plus. So Morey has developed a relationship with these guys. And so he goes on the podcast, and they spoke for over an hour. And we're not going to play you all the audio because, frankly, the audio that we have selected here at 97.3 ESPN are the highlights. There were a lot of lowlights, and there were a lot of moments in the interview where Daryl Morey's he just exudes everything that the average Sixers fan hates about him. He's awkward. He has trouble putting sentences together. He has to correct himself multiple times. He doesn't want to say the wrong thing, so then he says another wrong thing. You know, the analogy he makes to Brooke Lopez and Joel Embiid, he doesn't verbalize it properly. Then the hosts are having to, restate what he said. He's like, well, that's not exactly what I meant. This is what I meant. And it just was an example of an individual who is everything Philly sports fans hate. Philly sports fans love the guy who is the witty, shoots from the hip, all ball all the time. Like when Daryl Morey talked about at one point, I had to get away from the NBA a little bit after the season. I had to unplug and recalibrate because I was just, I was exhausted. Like, fans don't want to hear that. Fans want to hear, that Daryl Morey has been in the lab and he's been working. Eagle fans love Howie Roseman because Howie Roseman's like, right after the Super Bowl, gotta get back to work. Gotta get back on the horse, And Daryl Morey's like, oh, I needed a break. No one wants to hear that stuff. So, but there were a couple of statements that he made during the podcast that I thought were the most eye-opening, okay? So let's start with the first eye-opening part, okay? He talked about the head coach. Now, if I might remind all of you listening on 97.3 ESPN FM, or you're listening on the 97.3 ESPN mobile app powered by First Bank of Seattle, or you're catching the show on my YouTube channel at Josh Hennig, thank you for wherever you're getting the show. Thank you for consuming. Thanks for being here with me. Steve from Ventnor. I'll get to your text in a little bit. One of the comments Morey made was that him and Nick Nurse were not leaving. They were not getting fired. They were not leaving the team. So he was asked about Nick Nurse, and I thought this comment about the Sixers head coach was very interesting because I think it gives a very interesting insight into a duality. The duality being how basketball aware Daryl Morey is, but simultaneously how tone deaf he is for how what he says, how it can be interpreted by the media and the fans. Here is Sixers president of basketball operations, Daryl Morey, talking about the 76ers head coach, Nick Nurse.
We know that Nick will win a title if he has the horses, like he's done it. And I thought he did a tremendous job last year through, people forget it was like a challenging year last year too. And, we didn't beat the Knicks, but gave it a run, which, I guess isn't worth a whole lot. But I thought it wasn't on Nick. I see Nick as like, once he has the horses, we're going to be in a good place. That's my belief.
So this is the duality of Daryl Morey. On one hand, he says, look, Nick Nurse is a championship head coach if he has the right guys on his team. And I would say that is true of every head coach who has ever won a championship. It doesn't matter if your name is Doc Rivers, Rick Carlisle, Nick Nurse, Larry Brown. It doesn't matter if your name is Greg Popovich. It doesn't matter if your name is Rudy Tomjanovich. It doesn't matter what coach you are. most coaches who are championship level coaches, they win those championships because they have the right players. It's not because they're the best coach in the world. It's because there's something about them when you combine them with certain people that creates a championship level of play, character, mentality. And when you don't have the right people, they won't be a championship level team. But the duality is that Daryl Morey is the one in charge of giving Nick Nurse those horses. Okay, we talked about the Kentucky Derby last week, right? One of the conversations well, who are the jockeys? Well, who are the breeders? Who are the trainers, right? And when it comes to horses, it's the same thing with hiring the right players to be on your basketball team. The idea is that the jockey on top of the horse, or in this case, the head coach on the sideline of a basketball team, is only as good as the horses they are given. And if Daryl Morey is giving Nick Nurse a flawed roster, then that is a huge, huge problem. So it's great that Daryl Morey has that level of confidence in Nick Nurse, but yet, Daryl, it's your fault that they didn't have a good enough team on the court. Now, I'm not blaming Daryl Morey for the injuries. That's out of his control, and I totally get that. But Daryl, you say that Nick needs the right players. Well, who's responsible, not named Daryl Morey, for getting Nick Nurse those players? Now, the Sixers president of basketball operations did say on the Rice to Ricky Sanchez podcast that his biggest regret is still that he did build last year's roster incorrectly.
We're spending a lot of time. What could we have done better? I think I spoke about it after the season. I did get too focused on, what are the pieces that are going to help us win a playoff series, and even how we spoke in training camp about getting our key players to the playoffs. It did set the wrong tone, and that will be something that I correct and Coach Nurse corrects.
Think about that for a minute. He admitted he was wrong. He admitted he did something wrong. Now, that's only one step. Admitting you're wrong and then making a correction, that's the next step. It's the next step in the process. Now, we're hoping that means that Daryl Morey is going to do a better job this offseason compared to last year. But there's no guarantee of that. I cannot promise you that Daryl Morey is all of a sudden going to get that much smarter or that much more together. I have no idea if Daryl Morey has the foresight, the cap flexibility, the resources to legitimately make this team as better as maybe even he wants to make it. Now, of course, some of this comes down to that draft pick. When the NBA draft lottery goes down next week, are they going to get a high enough pick that they're going to be able to use that pick on a great young player or trade it for a more experienced player? So again, some of this is out of his hands again. It goes back to what I told you before, folks. He is a symptom of a larger problem, to which some fans would say, well, yeah, the larger problem is the big man, Joel Embiid. And when Daryl Morey was asked about, well, why then did you give Joel Embiid that big contract extension when he has a history of so many injuries? This is what Daryl Morey told the hosts of the Rights Ricky Sanchez podcast.
If we're winning the title, Joel Embiid's on the team. I think it's important how these top players, and Joel's going to be one of the top players all time, regardless of how things get written from here in terms of everyone knows how good he was in his MVP year and multiple years around that. When you go out and get a top free agent like we did with Paul, obviously, people are questioning that, but, we thought that was absolutely the best way to maximize the window with Joel.
And this is, again, where there's a duality here. Daryl Morey is being honest, but he's also being a little delusional. Because like with the comment about Nick Nurse saying, well, Nick is only as good as the horses you give him. Well, Daryl, you give him the horses. There's a similar delusion when it comes to Joel Embiid. And that delusion for the Sixers president of basketball operations is when he says, well, he's going to go down as one of the greatest players of all time. I mean, talk about putting the cart before the horse. Think about all the players who are playing in the league right now. Okay? What they have accomplished in their careers to put them in that conversation. Joel Embiid played with a guy in James Harden, who was also won a league MVP, was named a top 75 player in NBA history. He is going to go down, James Harden, high on the all-time list in three-pointers made, points scored, assists, all kinds of categories. He is going to be statistically one of the best players of all time. And even he, James Harden, is not anymore a top 10 or top 15 player who, by the way, James Harden fails in game sevens all the time. You just saw it again for the Clippers in their first round series loss. So, for Daryl, he can tell me how great Joel Embiid is all he wants, but there's a plethora of players who are playing in the NBA right now who are either on the same level or better than Joel Embiid. And I'm not saying I take shots at Embiid, but this is the delusion that Daryl Morey is under. Because on one hand, he is saying the truth. Hey, man, we signed Paul George because he was the best guy for us to get to maximize the window we are in right now. 100% correct. No lies, no falsehoods proclaimed by that. And he said, if we are going to win a championship with this team as it is currently constituted, it is going to be with Joel Embiid. Again, no falsehoods, no lies. Good. But then he puts Embiid on that pedestal. And you look around the league, and you see there's a lot of guys in this league who you could argue are building a better resume for their careers than Joel Embiid is. Luka Doncic, Giannis Antetokounmpo, Jason Tatum, Nikola Jokic. I mentioned James Harden. I mean, he's got a Hall of Fame resume no matter what you think of him, but he's got the resume. LeBron James is still out there. Steph Curry is still out there. Depending on how you feel about some of these guys, the reality is that there are numerous players who I think the average, not the average fan, but most basketball fans would pick over Joel Embiid right now. Because they have better track records. They have better resumes. And they have at least shown you over the last few years what they are capable of. Giannis, Jokic, Tatum, all have won championships. Luka, been to a finals. LeBron, playing at a high level at 41 years old. Ridiculous, but it's true. Jalen Brunson having amazing postseason performances. James Harden now has been a high-level all-star contributor to 4 different franchises in the last 6 years. Jimmy Butler got the Miami Heat to 2 NBA Finals with the band of misfit toys in Miami, and now he's trying to help the Warriors get to a finals. All of these players I just named, oh, by the way, Steph Curry won a championship recently. Let's not forget about that. All these players have done more in recent years than Joel Embiid. But Daryl Morey wants to say he's going to go down as an all-time great. Again, I think Daryl Morey is trying to be honest. He's trying to be forthright. He's trying to be genuine. But then he says something that creates this duality. This two sides of the coin. These mirror images where on one hand, he's being honest and he's being real and he's stating the facts as we know it. But then on the flip side, there's something about his worldview that is delusional or aloof or disconnected from reality. Back to text board. Coming up next, Steve and Veterinary, your text and more. 609-403-0973. Your DMs into 973 ESPN mobile app powered by First Bank of Seattle. Josh Hennick hanging out with you on a Thursday night.
Sunday Night Baseball on ESPN Radio. It's an interleague showdown in Cleveland.
Deep right field, and this game is tied. Monster home run from Harper.
Bryce Harper and the Philadelphia Phillies face Jose Ramirez and the Cleveland Guardians.
Gone! Jose Ramirez.
The Phillies and Guardians on Sunday Night Baseball. Coverage begins at 6 Eastern.
It's Phillies baseball on 97.3 ESPN.
Thy ticket, Lady Jennifer of Coolidge.
Well, many thanks, good sir. Here'th my Discover card.
They accept Discover at Renaissance fairs?
Yeah, they do here. Discover's accepted at the places I love to shop. Getteth with the times.
With the times? You're playing the lute.
Yeah, and it sounds pretty good, right?
Discover is accepted at 99% of places that take credit cards nationwide. Based on the February 2024 Nielsen report.
When you're hiring, have you ever felt like you're missing out on meeting great candidates? Well, they're not hard to find when you go to ZipRecruiter. ZipRecruiter helps 10 million people with their job search every day. People who are actively looking for jobs like yours. So it's easy to find the right person fast. 4 out of 5 employers who post on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate within the first day. Try ZipRecruiter for free at ZipRecruiter.com/free. That's ZipRecruiter.com/free.
Welcome to Staples.
Hi, I hear Staples prints it all.
Oh, you bet. Posters, banners.
Can you print it all for Father's Day?
Oh, of course. Photo gifts like canvas prints, photo puzzles.
Can you print it all for graduation?
Sure can. Custom cards and invites.
Can you print a huge banner with the grad's picture?
Oh, definitely.
Even an embarrassing baby picture?
Oh, those are the best kind.
I know, right?
Print it all for dads and grads at Staples. And right now, get 40% off custom cards, invites, and photo gifts. N75 exclusions apply. Visit staples.com/print for details. With Progressive, renters can save on protection for the things that make your place yours. Even things that don't make sense to everyone.
People always wonder why I don't get rid of my guitar since I never play. But it's like, what if I actually end up taking lessons? Sure, I've had it for 8 years, but if I get rid of it, then what will my New Year's resolution be next January?
Exactly. So bundle your renters and auto and save with Progressive and protect the things that make sense to you. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and affiliates and other insurers not available in all states or situations. Covered subject to policy terms and conditions.
This is the story of the one. As a safety manager at a manufacturing plant, he does everything he can to keep his coworkers safe. From finding ways to reduce risks to keeping safety supplies in stock. And for that, he relies on Grainger. Grainger offers a broad range of quality products and next-day delivery, so he can always play it safe. Call 1-800-GRAINGER, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Sometimes I struggle to get to sleep. My body stopped for the day, but my mind is still running. So I take ZzzQuil.
ZzzQuil, the world's #1 sleep aid brand, has a range of non-habit-forming products to fit you and your family's needs. Invest in a great night's sleep for the best you tomorrow.
I'm awake and ready to take on anything.
Better days start with ZzzQuil nights. Explore our products at ZzzQuil.com. Use as directed. Keep out of reach of children.
Another checkup? Why are so many people getting new puppies?
Dr. Kim's veterinary office is littered with cuteness.
We are booked solid for weeks, but who can say no to a puppy, right? Oh, who's a good boy? Oh, who's what? Oh,
She needs to find extra vet techs to get those pups some extra love.
I need Indeed.
Indeed you do. When you sponsor a job on Indeed, candidates can find it easier, so you can hire easier. Redeem your $75 credit at Indeed.com/credit. Terms and conditions apply.
Now, more Game Night with Josh Hennig on 97.3 ESPN and on the 97.3 ESPN free mobile app, powered by First Bank of Sea Isle City.
We'll get back to the text board in just a minute. 609-403-0973. Your DMs into 97.3 ESPN. Mobile app powered by First Bank. See how, as always, we are live on my YouTube channel at Josh Hennig, where you can see the Ocean Casino Resort Studios in the background behind me here. You know, I'll get to Steven Ventnor's messages in just a moment. But I think at the end of the day, what I had said earlier today to Mike Gill on the Sports Bash here on 97.3 ESPN is still kind of ringing in my ear, my own words, which is, I think ultimately the biggest problem in Philadelphia sports is whenever one of the teams has a certain level of success, it creates a dynamic that basically makes the fans be even more critical of the other teams. If the Eagles had not won 2 Super Bowl championships in the last 8 years, I don't think some of the criticisms of the 76ers and the Phillies would be as intense as they are. And I also think that the leniency we're giving the Flyers, because the Flyers at least have made some firings and made some changes, has allowed them more latitude because fans feel like, well, this guy didn't do the job. At least you fired him and you brought in somebody else. And so there's a feeling that, well, Howie's doing stuff. Why aren't you? And the same deal happened, by the way, almost 20 years ago. When the Phillies won the World Series in 2008, it was like the pressure on the Eagles and Andy Reid went up like 20, 30%. Because there was this attitude of, well, the Phillies got the one World Series and they won it all. Andy's been to 5 NFC Championship games and has only been in 1 Super Bowl. And I think that pressure was ratcheted up on the Philadelphia Eagles. And then the pressure on the Flyers, right? The Flyers, they got to a Stanley Cup. And the expectation is, well, they'll be back and they'll do it again and again. And it never happened. And the same deal happened, by the way, every time a Philly sports team wins a championship. The pressure gets ratcheted up on the other teams, right? There's a perspective of, well, why are they doing well and you're not? What are you doing wrong? Why don't you just do the right thing like he does? You know, it's the comparison method. You know, it's, well, they're doing it. Why can't you? And it's not always that simple. But I think that if Howie Roseman had not been so successful in the last 8 years as he has been, I think that some of the intensity in how all of us feel about Daryl Morey and the Sixers and Dave Dombrowski and the Phillies would not be as aggressive and as intense as it is. All right, couple of texts to get to. Steve Venner chiming in at 609-403-0973. He says, Josh, there's a lot of alpha males in the sports world. Maybe they want to look smart by going outside the box or doing something that is not obvious. Well, the problem is that, you know, being the person who wants to look super smart and think outside the box is not really a sign of someone being an alpha male. It's someone masquerading as an alpha male and they're overcompensating. That's what that is. You know, I remember when I was younger, we used to make fun of people not me specifically, but there was a common restraint that, you would see somebody pull up to high school or college in a big truck with big tires, and then it'd be like a diminutive individual, and it'd be like, they were compensating for something, right? That was always the attitude. Well, that's what happens when you try to look super smart, or you go outside the box and be like, I'm going to show you how smart I am. It's like the guy who shows up in the big truck. You're compensating for something. If you're trying to be the smartest guy in the room, what you're really saying is, I'm not really that confident in myself. I need to overcompensate. And that's not an alpha male. An alpha male is someone who has a level of confidence that they don't need to express as the smartest guy in the room or show everybody how outside the box thinking they are. Now, Stephen Venner's other point, he says, I think it's time to trade Walker. You got to trade Taijuan Walker right now. Get creative. Attach some prospects like Mick Abel or Otto Kemp and go get you some bullpen help and a center fielder. Well, two things here. One, as I've told you before, Steve, I would be shocked if any major league team is going to make a trade before Memorial Day. Remember, Memorial Day is the Mason-Dixon line. Memorial Day is the day that we really have an idea for the first time all year who are the haves and have-nots. Because the problem is, right now when you look around baseball, you have teams like the Minnesota Twins, the Texas Rangers, the Toronto Blue Jays, the Tampa Bay Rays, who you're seeing right now, against the Phillies. And by the way, the Los Angeles Angels. Let's throw a couple other names in this pot here just to drive this point further. The Atlanta Braves, the Washington Nationals. So I've seen 7 teams in Major League Baseball. What do all 7 of those teams have in common? They all have losing records, and they're within range of the wild card. So right now, it's very difficult to convince a team to make a trade because right now, there's too many teams that think they're still in it. And we all know, belief is a powerful thing. If you believe you're in it, it's hard to make a deal. So I don't see them making a trade now with Walker. Now, I like the idea of attaching a prospect to him to get a player. I think that's how it's going to work. I was saying, Mike Gill and I were talking about this earlier on the Sports Bash, about the idea that, look, it's not that Walker's untradeable, but you have to attach him to something else to make him more of interest to other teams. Teams like the Red Sox, Texas Rangers, a team like the Dodgers, a team that can absorb Taijuan Walker's contract, and you offer them a Kemp or an Abel or some other minor league pitcher, right, to make the deal more appealing. That's how it's going to get done. Thanks for listening. I'm Josh Henning. Have a great everybody.
Hey, South Jersey, this is Billy Schwein. Tune into The Locker Room every Saturday and Sunday from 10 a.m. to noon on 97.3 ESPN. Each weekend in The Locker Room, you will get